All right, so we are now on Wednesday. So deadlifts are going to be the focus of the day today, and with the warm up as well, right? We have the barbell deadlifts, the single leg glute bridge kind of thing, like getting the glutes warm and engaged for the actual deadlift work that they are going to be doing. So warm up shouldn't be too long, and that's because after you're done explaining things, so I'm guessing, I think I had like 8 minutes or something like that for the warm up, probably a little less, but it'll exactly that. It'll take a little less as well. You're gonna have like 5 to 7 minutes or so to go over both the deadlift for the strength, the deadlift for the strength, the deadlift itself, the movement, and then also the Metcon, because this is very straightforward. But with that, in that 5 to 7 minutes, right, like, you can explain all of those things. Now, things to focus on in terms of actually deadlifting. One, just like yesterday with the front squats, is going to be bracing the core properly. The other one is going to be making sure that they're keeping the barbell close to the body. Now, a lot of times people will deadlift, and as they're deadlifting, the bar will kind of come away from them as they're pulling. Make sure they're constantly bringing that bar this way as they're deadlifting it, right? So to kind of get them to do that, they can think about turning their elbows out just a little bit as they're starting to pull, or just, you know, keep it real close. Always remind them they don't want to like cheese grate their shins, but there should absolutely be that bar body contact for basically the entire thing. So other than that, the big one is going to be keeping, like, when we deadlift, right, we don't pull from the same position as we would for a snatch or a clean, right? With a deadlift, we have that higher hip position, whereas it's a little lower. Hurts my knees to go lower, so I'm just gonna, you get what I mean. Like, you have that higher hip position here, okay? So to kind of maintain that, because the hips don't want to, like, the hips will rise a little bit, but we don't want them to go all the way up. Like, if they're deadlifting like this, right, from that full hip position that they're at already, they're going to be at a mechanical disadvantage. So we want to make sure that that hip rises at the right time. So good little cue, because a lot of times the one thing missing from keeping people in that good position is going to be just using the back of the body more, right? A lot of the times, like, we always say lift with our legs, but what does lifting with our legs mean, right? In the deadlift specifically, right, it's about using the back of the body to move the weight, right, the posterior chain. So we want to use as much hamstring and glute as possible. So we can do that by, one, pulling the bar into us, two, pushing the hips forward the entire time, right? You can activate it just like that. And the third one is we can tell people to think about doing this with their feet, right? They're going to be externally rotating. Now, if you stand there and you externally rotate, right, you automatically get a little extra engagement with the posterior chain, especially when you're picking something up, right? You won't feel it so much standing, but when you're actually trying to pick something up, that's when that extra little bit of a, activation is going to come from. So 3 big cues: keeping it close, keeping the hips down low, and then also, again, externally rotating the foot. Now, they don't actually want their feet to be moving on the ground, but it's just that thought of doing that. That's also going to kind of get people to push their knees out. And some people, if they don't have their glutes working properly, right, they'll deadlift and their knees will come in like that, which we do not want. So keep that in mind. Other than that, that's the deadlift itself. Now, the strength, they're going to, again, have that 5 minutes after you explain to warm up to their starting weight. They're only going to need to hit probably like 2 or 3 sets. I would say 3 minimum would be a good place to start. But for this EMOM, right now we're on that clock, therefore, like, people are all lifting at the same time. That gives you a chance to, as those intervals come up, keep an eye on what people are doing. But in the 5 minutes before you start the clock as well, you're also going to be trying to, see how people are moving and then correct any faults before we actually get into the EMOM. So they are going to be increasing weight every single time. The weights will be touch and go, right? So the snatch and the cleans that we've done in the last couple of days, they were not. For the deadlifts, we will. So When people are doing their touch and go reps, just make sure that they're focusing on keeping that bar close, not only on the way up, but also on the way down, right? I've always said that you put the barbell down in the reverse order that you pick it up. So at the last second, your hips go forward. Now, the first step when you're putting the bar down is letting the hips go back. Now you can see, right, my back angle is maintained. As soon as I let the bar go past my knees, then I let my knees come forward and I maintain that neutral spine the entire time. But for the most part, the touch and go deadlifts people will get relatively easily, right? But just keep an eye out for anyone that's like losing tension in their reps. You know, if by rep 1, if they start it perfectly, but then by rep 2, they're kind of like this, right? They need to be a little more careful. Like if that's for their last set of the day, whatever, right? Like it happens, right? We all lose tension when we're lifting. But if it's like that from set 1, that needs to be corrected either in having them act like just change what they're doing or bringing the weight down if they started too heavy, which I don't think many people will, but some people you never know, right? So with this, again, just have them increase weight every single time. With the deadlift, obviously, you can get a little heavier. So I would say probably, like you would start at about 65% here and then try and get as close to 80 by the end of it, 80 to 85, depending on who's lifting, right? But just a good rule of thumb, encourage people, start at 65 to 70% and then see how things feel from there. Or you can also say like, and that's actually this is one thing that I do kind of want to get people familiar with in terms of programming is just how are things on a scale of 1 to 10, right? So you can say RPE, rate of perceived exertion, right? Or you can just say on a scale out of 1 to 10, I would say that was a 9.5, meaning like that was almost maximal. There's nothing else you could have done to do that set kind of thing. Or you know what, like have people start at like a 6.5 to a 7 out of 10 difficulty for their first set and then increase slowly from there. So that is something to kind of get into people's heads starting now, just because I do want to kind of use that as a way to describe how things should feel or get feedback on how things do feel for yourself kind of thing, right? So moving on, the Metcon, very straightforward. 2 things, kettlebell swings, burpees. Now, it is a 4-time workout, right? 100 kettlebell swings, obviously overhead, right? Opening up the shoulders. This is not RX, this is not RX, this is RX. Okay, they have to open up the shoulders. They don't have to have it behind them like this, but they do need to make sure that those shoulders are open, right? Like ask people like, where are your armpits kind of thing, right? Good kind of cue to do. But again, RX is 70 pounds for guys, which is the red one, or it's the 53 pounds for the ladies, which is the green one. So it is a heavier kettlebell swing. With that, every minute on the minute, including 0, that's do 6 burpees over the kettlebell. So I was thinking about it, and 6 would be a great goal for a lot of people. That being said, that could be brought down to 4. I'm gonna leave that up to you, only because, you know, 6 wouldn't be a problem for someone who's like not too bad. Like in reality, like it won't be terrible, but the burpees on the minute can be debilitating for some people, right? Especially if they're not used to doing them. So I would say a good scaling option for someone who is newer, have them do 3, right? Or take away the burpees in total and just have them do those kettlebell swings. Now, that being said, it is a 12-minute time cap, which is tight technically, but you know, people should be able to absolutely do at least 10 kettlebell swings every minute on the minute with that 6 burpees. So if it takes them 15 seconds or 20 seconds to do 6 burpees somehow, they can still do 10 kettlebell swings in 20 to 24 seconds, and they'll still have 15 seconds of rest till their next minute. So people can try and approach this as an ELOM style, but for the most part, this will just be like a lot of posterior chain, right? We've already used it a lot here, and then a lot of grip as well. So scaling options, obviously you can bring that weight down. If they bring the weight down, I would encourage them to stick with 6 burpees. Otherwise, they can change that to 4, they can change that to 3. And then if they're very new, they can again use like a very light kettlebell or just take away the burpees completely and then use a lighter kettlebell as well. But for the most part, this is very straightforward. Just because of the heavier kettlebell, there's a lot of people, and you were one of those people, right? Where it was, oh, it's the heavier kettlebell, I'm not really sure if I could do it, right? People underestimate just how much power their hips generate in a proper kettlebell swing, right? So while it may feel heavy to hold on to, they'll still be able to always get that weight up as long as they're using their hips properly, okay? Avoid people from doing this. The kettlebell should always go top of the legs, and then from that point, push the hips forward, right? If they need to, they can kind of like come up onto their toes to get that rep moving, but the more hips, the better, right? So if you want to, you can do a few practice kettlebell swings before the workout starts, just to make sure people are using their hips for it. But for the most part, like, this is another like straightforward workout. It's just, it will be kind of tough. So with that, I think that does cover it all. So let me know if you have any questions.